Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today to learn more about the National 4-H Conference and how you can participate to help young people learn, practice, and apply new skills and use their voices, talent, and ideas to make a difference. Today's presentation is intended for 4-H and extension professionals. Youth who want to attend conference should reach out to their local 4-H office or land-grant university for information on how to get involved. Today's information session is being recorded. The recording and slides will be posted to our website and sent in an email to those who registered. My name is Manaharan Muthusamy. I'm the Acting Division Director for the Division of Youth and 4-H within the Institute of Youth, Family and Community. After I provide the overview and history of National 4-H Conference, the external evaluator for the 2023 National 4-H Conference, Jill Lingard from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, will share the experiences and outcomes from the attendees' participation. Following Jill, Annie, Maris, and Andrea will share information about the 2024 National 4-H Conference, including the program, schedule, registration and scholarship information, land-grant university responsibilities, and next steps. Next slide. Although we know many of you are familiar with 4-H, we would like to share a little more about it to ground the conversation and to introduce 4-H to those who are new to the program. 4-H is the youth outreach program of the United States Department of Agriculture, and it is administered by the Cooperative Extension System through over 110 land-grant colleges and universities across the United States and its territories. 4-H also has a rich history of being a leader in positive youth development experiences for more than a century. Slide, please. National 4-H Conference is one of these experiences. USDA has hosted National 4-H Conference, also known as the Secretaries Conference, since 1927. The goal of the conference is to develop the next generation of leaders to solve societal problems. We do this by bringing more than 250 young people from across the US and its territories who travel to Washington, D.C. each spring to share their voice with federal agencies and congressional committees on a wide range of topics that are important to them and our partners, with the goal of impacting change in America. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, National 4-H Conference has a rich history dating back to 1927. National 4-H Conference was originally called the National 4-H Club Camp, where delegates slept in tents on the grounds of the National 4-H Mall in front of USDA headquarters in Washington, D.C. The photo and document shown here, National 4-H Camps/Conference Expanding Horizons for 50 years, were obtained from USDA's National Agricultural Library. As an interesting fact, in 1925, the directors of Cooperative Extension Services wanted to find a way to give national recognition to outstanding leaders and asked USDA to establish a national camp as an official USDA function, which was approved. At the first camp, Dr. C.B. Smith, chief of the USDA Office of Cooperative Extension Work, told the state leaders and delegates that in 4H work, education is not preparation for life, but life itself. And education has been emphasized in conferences ever since. Today, National 4H Conference remains true to its original intent to develop the next generation of leaders while continuing to be future focused. Now, I will turn this over to Jill.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And thank you very much for the time today to visit with you about the 2023 conference evaluation. As was mentioned, my name is Dr. Jill Lingard. I'm from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln and had the privilege of evaluating the conference for the second year in a row with my colleague Wendy Hine from Oregon State University. Before we dive into the data you see here on the screen, I just want to give note to some of the methods that we use to collect this data. We had several methods. We did a delegate survey post the experience, but also during the conference, we were doing rate the day surveys every day. We also did an LGU or military program contact survey and 2 focus groups that I'll talk about as we proceed through the slides. What you see here on the screen right now is just a snapshot of our participation from our states across the country. And it's pretty exciting to see that we had representation from 43 states, and in addition, 3 territories and 4 tribal nations. This is an increase when you look at our land-grant universities of 9 land-grant universities who were engaged, and roughly this represents half of all of our land-grant universities. And so it's pretty exciting growth, and we're happy to be able to report that to you. As we look more closely at the individual youth participation, we see there were 288 youth delegates this year. That's a 34% increase from last year. The demographics in terms of gender and race and ethnicity are pretty similar to last year, but uniquely, we have 7 branches of military service that were represented in the 2023 data. You can also see there at the bottom of the screen, the average age of the young person who's represented at the experience is just over 16. And a large portion of them, just over 3/4, have at least 5 or more years of experience in 4-H. As we look more closely at the impact and the engagement that the young people had in their experience, there's a few things that we just thought were interesting from the report we wanted to draw out for today's discussion. The first is looking at program quality. There were 3 key factors that we looked at in the assessment. One was their sense of belonging, 2, their sense of agency, and 3rd, opportunity for contribution. Those scales were really positive across the board, but maybe more interesting and more important is there's not a significant statistical difference in the measures and the responses between any of our groups of demographic interest. So you see their race and ethnicity, gender, or the length of time in 4-H. You saw a large majority of youth on the previous slide were 5 or more years in 4-H, but there's not a significant difference in how those youth feel about the program quality experience compared to those who had a lesser number of years in the program. So pretty important, we thought, to highlight that youth of different backgrounds and different experiences all felt successfully engaged at the conference. The second block that you see there on the screen is a highlight of the roundtable experience and briefings. As we looked at our daily ratings, this one continues for the second year in a row to be the highest rated experience. And we just wanted to draw that out, and we'll talk about that a little more as we go on. But there were, on a scale of 1 to 5, all responses were at 3.9 or above. And this becomes a clear anchor of the program. And we just wanted to highlight one quote that you see there at the bottom. This idea of being able to really have youth voice while they're in the nation's capital was a really, in their words, a profound experience for one young person. And then the last thing on the screen was new in 2023, the career fair exposed youth to federal program opportunities, federal employment opportunities rather, and allowed them to discover their career interests. And 90% of the young people walked away with an increased understanding of federal government career opportunities. So we're excited for more to come on the career fair in 2024. This slide speaks a little more to the youth experience and specifically looks at their increased report for capacity and leadership, civic engagement, and that sense of agency I talked about a moment ago. This one had some retrospective post then pre responses. So we asked youth to think about their feelings after the conference and then think back to what they thought before the conference. And so after the conference, more than 85% of the attendees reported in these three areas. But I'll speak to each of these individually. When we talk about intending to seek out civic engagement opportunities in their communities, that moved the needle from 57% from before the conference to 90% now post the experience. Feeling a sense of responsibility to solve problems in their communities moved from 56% to 85%. And then feeling empowered to make a difference in the communities moved from 55 to 89%. So again, across the board, we're looking at about a 30% increase from before the conference across these measures. And then this next slide is drawn from our National 4-H Common Measures social skills measure that really looks at the things you see here on the screen: respect to diversity, inclusion, confidence, and teamwork. This is on a 1 to 4 scale, and we pulled out a few of the measures here to highlight for you, but this speaks to their understanding of the value of working with others different than themselves. This was 3.7 on a 1.4 scale. Promotion for inclusion, they're looking for ways to involve all members in their groups. That was strategically important, and we got a lot of feedback in the qualitative responses about that in the roundtable experiences. An increased confidence, that ability to be comfortable being a leader and speaking up in their groups. Value for teamwork, having an increased respect for others' ideas. And so you can see there the scores for those on the screen. And then again, just another quote we thought was telling to draw out at the bottom there. National 4-H Conference taught me patience and how to learn to collaborate with others that are very different from myself. This proved to be a challenge at first, but I can confidently say that I'm much better at this than I was before. I mentioned a moment ago that the roundtable experience for the second year in a row continues to be the highlight when we look at the rate the day of the daily experiences. And some of the things that we wanted to share with you about this that came out of our data collection is this idea of sharing youth voice. The ability for young people to really have their voice heard in federal decision-making came out repeatedly as a cornerstone of importance in the roundtable experience. And you can see a quote there. I was proud of what my group was able to accomplish. And in the case of this particular group, they were working with the EPA. They thought that they took their thoughts and their ideas into account and felt like they were going to be really valuably used in the future. Also, we heard a lot about peer-to-peer leadership. We had an opportunity not only to listen to the voices of the delegates, but also to do one of our focus groups with the collegiate roundtable facilitators. Those young people are critical, of course, to the success of the experience at the conference for a variety of reasons, because they provide leadership to a cornerstone experience. But you'll hear that repeatedly from the delegates, that the interaction and the engagement and the mentorship that they have from those collegiate facilitators is just really integral to their experience. And so you see their youth felt positively influenced by them, a pretty high score of 4.7 on a scale of 1.5. And then again, another quote that we're drawing out there at the bottom, my facilitator was amazing. Her method of teaching and helping was amazing. She made everyone feel included and cared about. And then last but not least, this idea of the agency connection. The presentations were delivered on site at the partner agency. That gave the youth a real face-to-face opportunity to interact with the staff of the federal partners that they were working with. And you can see a quote there from an LGU contact actually speaking to that. One of the youth from our state reported being offered an internship on the spot at their agency, and multiple said the agency was planning to use their ideas. And so even leaving the agency and going back and having that dialogue with the leadership from their land-grant universities continues to show the value and the impact that that face-to-face engagement with the federal partners had for the young people in this experience. And then the last slide I wanted to share with you today are a few things that we drew out of the report under the umbrella of how you might prepare for youth who might be coming to the conference for the first time, or maybe not for the first time, based on some of the things we heard from young people. One of those is around how much young people value being able to explore the nation's capital. We hear over and over again that there's not enough time for them to be able to experience all that they want to see and do in the nation's capital. And so we just would invite you to consider looking at your schedules and, if possible, extending your trips to accommodate the young person's wants to do that. Delegates, again, frequently report the importance of that. And then as we thought about conference logistics and some of the feedback we heard in that space, this may be the first convention or professional conference experience youth have ever attended. Help them feel confident by reviewing the handbook and schedule in advance. Discuss what to expect from the hotel meals, the attire, the sessions, networking. There were really what we might consider as experienced conference goers, pretty simple things that were just brand new to them because they were seeing it all for the very first time. The third piece, being present, and we've heard this again now 2 years in a row. All parts of the program are intentional to create this complete experience. And delegates really value participation, not only their own, but by their peers. And they express concern when there are groups that step away to do other experiences and they're not engaged with them fully the entire time. And so this idea of being present and being together in the conference is really important. So again, just would invite you to consider that as you think about your schedules. And then last but not least, making connections. And to no surprise, this idea of the social networking and the meeting new people is highly important to the audience that we're serving. So meeting new people was the most frequent pre-survey response about what delegates were looking forward to. We saw a lot of excitement between young people for that in the experience. And trading pins, for those of you who are seasoned conference goers and have traveled with young people before, may be familiar with this idea of trading, but trading pins were a very popular way of initiating conversation, especially that first day. So again, to the extent that that's accessible to you, would invite you to consider what your young person might bring in the way of a trading pin or other item, because it seemed to help break the ice. That's all we've prepared today. Just want to say thank you again for the time and look forward to seeing all of you in 2024.
Excited to share an overview of 2024 National 4-H Conference and debut our new National 4-H Conference artwork. This artwork includes symbols that tell the history of USDA and conference. Starting from the back, the artwork features the glowing Lincoln Memorial. On May 15, 1862, President Lincoln signed legislation to establish the United States Department of Agriculture. USDA is made up of 29 agencies and offices with nearly 100,000 employees who serve the American people at more than 4,500 locations across the country and abroad. The National Institute of Food and Agriculture is one of these agencies. Through our work on food, agriculture, economic development, science, natural resources conservation, and other issues, USDA has impacted the lives of generations of Americans, including 4-Hers. The American elm trees on either side are key features of the Lincoln Memorial landscape and the National Mall. American elms are native to Eastern North America and were planted extensively throughout the United States in the 1700s and 1800s. From the earliest plans of the National Mall, elm trees were the unifying element that linked the parks, avenues, and monument grounds. In the center of the artwork, you'll notice a tent. In 1927, USDA held its first National 4-H Conference, which was originally named the 4-H Club Camp. Youth delegates slept in tents on the National Mall outside the USDA headquarters building in Washington, D.C. At the base of the diamond is the 4-H clover, which is linked by 3 points, which represents that the 4-H Youth Development Program is administered by a 3-way national public-private partnership between 4-H National Headquarters at NIFA, the Cooperative Extension System, and National 4-H Council. The 2022 National 4-H Conference will be held from Friday, April 19th to Wednesday, April 24th at the Hyatt Regency Crystal City in Arlington, Virginia. Young people who participate in conference are referred to as delegates. National 4-H Conference is considered a multi-day working conference for youth delegates who will participate in roundtable discussions, youth perspective briefings, career exploration, and historic and cultural activities at the hotel and off-site. We have 3 objectives for National 4-H Conference. The first objective is opportunity for all. All land-grant colleges and universities should have heard from a staff member in the Division of Youth and 4-H, and we hope that is why you're with us today. Please consider selecting and sending high school age 4-Hers along with chaperones to National 4-H Conference. We continue to strive to increase overall youth participation by learning reasons for non-attendance through our outreach efforts and by reducing barriers through scholarship. Our long-term goal is for all 112 land-grant colleges and universities across every state, U.S. territory, and the District of Columbia to send youth to participate in conference. The second objective is partnerships. We encourage your institution to partner with other land-grant institutions in your state to select a diverse state delegation based on age, background, geographic distribution, and or experience with the 4-H program. And the third objective is workforce development. Our goal is to increase 4-Hers familiarity with the federal government and future internship, volunteership, fellowship, and career opportunities. So how does conference work? Federal partners play a key role by presenting an issue of importance on which they would like to receive youth perspective. Federal partners provide young people an opportunity to see firsthand how they can influence government decision-making and be introduced to the various careers in federal service. All land-grant colleges and universities are invited to select and send high school age students to National 4-H Conference along with chaperones. And the youth, the delegates themselves, they choose the topic, research the issue, and work with their peers to develop a 45-minute youth perspective briefing and formally present their recommendations to the federal agency. Young people can also apply to serve in various leadership roles at National 4-H Conference. A key component of National 4-H Conference is amplifying youth voice. One way we do this is through a peer leadership model. Youth and adults can serve in various leadership positions by either applying for the youth leadership team or the collegiate facilitator team. The youth leadership team, also referred to as the YLT, is made up of 6 high school students and 2 adult advisors. They are assembled to provide youth voice in conference planning and implementation. We are excited to announce that the adult advisors for the youth leadership team are Manola Irby from Alcorn State University and Natalie Korniak from Purdue University. The collegiate facilitator team is made up of 21 college students and 2 adult advisors. This group is assembled to host and facilitate youth roundtable groups. Each roundtable group is given a challenge question submitted by a federal agency. The roundtable groups prepare that 45-minute youth perspective briefing that is presented to the federal agency. We are thrilled to announce that the adult advisors for the collegiate facilitators are Brian Lucky from the University of Nevada, Reno Extension, and Nicole Swinson from Virginia State University. The lead collegiate facilitator is Olivia Hall, who is a junior at the University of New Haven.
Thank you, Annie. As part of the registration process, youth delegates will confirm that they read the 2024 Delegate Handbook. Chaperones will confirm they read the 2024 Delegate Handbook and the Guidebook for 1862, 1890, and 1994 staff and volunteers. The Delegate Handbook is used to help prepare delegates for their experience at National 4-H Conference. The handbook is full of useful information and helpful tips, such as general information about Washington, D.C., dress attire guide, emergency procedures, and much, much more. We ask delegates to bring a paper or digital copy of the delegate handbook with them to conference. Land-grant university staff and volunteers, including adult coordinators, chaperones, adult advisors, and collegiate facilitators, should additionally review the National 4-H Conference Guidebook for 1862, 1890, and 1994 staff and volunteers. Next slide. The following items are the responsibilities of the land-grant university chaperone. Conduct and discipline. Chaperones and land-grant universities will be responsible for enforcing the code of conduct and disciplinary action. Land-grant colleges and universities, in consultation with USDA NIFA and the conference logistics coordinator, if applicable, reserve the right to dismiss or remove any National 4-H conference participant that does not adhere to the rules and procedures as outlined in the guidebook. Any of the following consequences may be used depending on the severity of the situation. Number one, participant may receive a verbal warning. The second one, participant may remain at the event activity, but may possibly be barred from the future event. 3, participant may be asked to leave the event activity. If a youth is asked to leave, the 1862, 1890, and 1994 staff and or volunteers must notify the parent or guardians as well as arrange their escort home. And 4, participant may be alerted to local law enforcement if compromising the safety of others or conducting unlawful activity. Disciplinary procedure. Since the nature of offensive behavior may range from minor infractions to serious violations, the disciplinary action should reflect an appropriate consequence. All corrective actions taken are intended to serve and restorative purpose rather than a punitive measure. Land-grant colleges and universities should have a disciplinary procedure in order that includes documentation, corrective action, or termination from National 4-H Conference, and the appeal process, if any. Medical care and insurance. Chaperones should have access to any information necessary, such as a medical information and release form for 4-H youth and adults, to ensure that appropriate medical care is provided to those in their care. If an emergency situation arises, chaperones are responsible for seeking medical assistance for those in their delegation. 1862, 1890, and 1994 staff and volunteers should know and follow established procedures for reporting accidents or making insurance claims based upon the policies of your state, employer, or affiliated institution. The conference logistics coordinator will provide individual accident insurance from American Income Life Insurance Company for participants attending the National 4-H Conference activities. Contact information is available in the guidebook. As a note, NIFA would not collect or have access to this information. Supervision and room assignments. Land-grant universities are responsible for selecting chaperones. The preferred ratio of supervision is 5 youth per 1 adult at events and activities related to the National 4-H Conference. For this purpose, adult is defined as someone 21 years of age or older. Additionally, roommates must be assigned by the land-grant university. Transportation. When transportation is not provided by the conference logistic coordinator, chaperones should follow their land-grant university transportation policies. Please consult with the delegate handbook conference at a glance schedule for when the delegation will be responsible for transportation. Next slide. USDA NIFA would not regulate or enforce use or chaperones attire. There are no requirements for attire. The general information provided in the handbook is to assist participants in understanding that some events are more casual or less casual than others. For example, young people new to the 4-H flag raising ceremony may have no idea what to expect at this event. So our goal was to provide general guidance, but not be prescriptive. We defer to the adults and young people attending to work through what is appropriate and work within any dress code requirements that they have at their specific institutions. Next slide. Further details of the LGU and chaperones' responsibilities will be covered at the chaperone orientation on March the 28th from 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Zoom invitation link will be sent to all registered chaperones and land-grant university points of contact. Thank you.
The conference program revolves around the roundtable experience. So challenge questions, roundtable sessions, and youth perspective briefings are a fundamental part of National 4-H Conference. Each federal partner provides a challenge question for youth to research, brainstorm, and present on during conference. Youth delegates work together in groups, referred to as a roundtable, led by a collegiate facilitator, to develop recommendations and present them to the federal partner during a 45-minute youth perspective briefing. The roundtable experience provides young people an opportunity to think critically about current issues, investigate and discuss the agency's current efforts, provide a youth perspective, and recommend new ideas to bring about positive change. The youth spend most of the first 2 full days of conference researching and discussing the topic with their groups. They organize their ideas into a professional presentation. The presentations are delivered at a local DC area office of their federal agency partner. Each roundtable group consists of youth delegates, a trained college student facilitator, and a NIFA liaison. 3 or 5 adult chaperones are assigned to each group to provide supervision and support. This slide includes an overview of the briefing process. It's important that delegates read the delegate handbook, which will be released in early January, to help prepare them for their experience at National 4-H Conference. The handbook is full of useful information and includes the list of 20 challenge questions to choose from. At registration, delegates select the top 3 challenge question topics from the list that they would like to work on at conference. If 3 preferences are not selected or no preference is selected, delegates are randomly assigned a topic. The purpose of the Youth Career Fair is to provide 4-H delegates and collegiate facilitators access to a diverse range of opportunities, including internships, fellowships, and careers in the federal government, and to help young people know there are a variety of future possibilities and cool jobs in the federal sector. This is a career education event. More than 47 different federal partners participated in 2023 conference by either seeking youth voice on an important issue, hosting a service project, or attending the Youth Career Fair. Each contributed to NIFA's goals of creating an authentic civic engagement experience for young adults at the federal level and fostering positive youth development that provides our nation's youth with the 21st century skills needed to be successful, healthy, and productive members of society.
Thanks, Annie. Now we'll take a look at the day-to-day schedule. The 2024 National 4-H Conference will take place at the Hyatt Regency in Crystal City and in the greater Washington, D.C. area. Conference begins on Friday, April 19th, with registration and hotel check-in from 4 to 6 p.m. Activities will kick off with dinner, an opening assembly, and a welcome activity in the evening. If you arrive before check-in and would like to explore DC, a bag check will be available. On Saturday morning, a chaperone orientation will be held during breakfast to review the schedule, chaperone expectations, and answer questions. Delegates will spend the majority of the day in roundtable sessions. The roundtable session to which delegates are assigned will be based on the preference selected on the registration form. It is extremely important to solicit your delegates' preference for their assigned challenge question during registration to ensure a positive conference experience. The delegates will spend over 15 combined hours devoted to their challenge question topic, so it is essential that they have a topic they're passionate about. Each roundtable group will have one collegiate facilitator, 13 to 15 youth delegates, 4 to 6 assigned chaperones, and 1 NIFA liaison. The evening will end with a performance by Kiowa Dance Theater. Roundtable sessions will continue on Sunday with the same assigned groups. Youth perspective briefing rehearsals will be held to provide a chance for the delegates to practice their presentation in front of an audience of peers, chaperones, and USDA NIFA staff who will provide constructive feedback. After dinner, they will load buses for a guided evening monument tour. On Monday morning, delegates will travel to USDA headquarters for a 4-H flag raising ceremony. After the flag raising, delegations will have unstructured time and a night out in DC. This time can be used to explore Capitol attractions or schedule Capitol Hill visits. Delegations will be responsible for their own lunch, dinner, and transportation back to the hotel on Monday evening. On Tuesday morning, a chaperone refresher will be held during breakfast to review the schedule, chaperone expectations, and answer questions. The protocol for entering federal buildings will be reviewed at this chaperone refresher. Please keep in mind that most federal agencies require a photo ID at entry. Please plan for all delegates and chaperones to have a photo ID. Acceptable forms of an ID include a driver's license or non-driver ID, a passport, or a state-issued ID card, including a school ID or a library card with photo. As a culmination of the work in roundtable sessions, groups will travel by bus to their federal agency. They will present their 45-minute youth perspective briefing to federal partner staff. After the presentation, federal agency staff will likely ask questions, and some may even offer short tours of their buildings. The afternoon will consist of a youth career fair, and the evening will end with a closing celebration, certificate ceremony, and dance. On Wednesday, aside from breakfast, no events are scheduled. Hotel checkout is at 11 a.m. If you'd like to stay after checkout to further explore DC or visit Capitol Hill, a bag check will be available. As you can see, National 4-H Conference is considered a working conference with a busy schedule. There will be unstructured time on Wednesday for delegations to choose between sightseeing or visiting Capitol Hill. Capitol Hill visits are optional, and each delegation is responsible for scheduling appointments with their respective legislators. Suggested times for scheduling Capitol Hill visits include Friday before 4 p.m., Monday after 10 a.m., or any time on Wednesday.
Thank you. Next slide. USDA NIFA is excited to announce and offer scholarships for 4-H youth and adult chaperones associated with 1862, 1890, and 1994 land-grant colleges and universities. To be considered for the National 4-H Conference Scholarship Program, please follow the steps listed on the scholarship form. The scholarship form can be found on the National 4-H Conference resource website in English and Spanish. Step 1, applicants must complete Part A of the scholarship form with resume. Step 2, applicants email the completed form with resume to their land-grant university or state 4-H office. Step 3, the land-grant university or state 4-H office must email completed forms and resumes to the National 4-H Conference at USDA.gov by the scholarship deadline. Step 4, if selected, the scholarship recipients will be completing Part B, which contains additional information collected on the National 4-H Conference online registration system. Next slide. Next slide. Thank you. Registration will be collected by USDA NIFA's logistic partner, S. Stewart and Associates. Susan Stewart and Jed Matthews will assist you with your registration needs, such as the online registration system, payment, and coordination of rooming assignments. Registration will be open February the 1st through February the 29th. Space is limited to 320 youth participants plus chaperones, so registration will close earlier if we sell out. The fee for a youth participant 2 to a room and adult 2 to a room will be $920. The fee for adults 1 to a room will be $1,425. The registration fee covers the cost of hotel, lodging, meals provided, and a conference shirt. When completing the National 4-H Conference registration form, youth delegates and adult chaperones will have the opportunity to share their dietary restrictions and request reasonable accommodations. For minors, a parent and/or guardian consent is required. Land-grant universities will collect the registration forms from youth delegates and adult chaperones and enter the information into the online registration system. Payment can be made by check or credit card. Please note that there will be an additional convenience fee for the use of a credit card. Next slide. USDA is committed to creating inclusive environments where individuals with disabilities can quickly and easily request and obtain reasonable accommodation. If you need or a youth in your delegation needs a reasonable accommodation to participate in this event, the request should be submitted to Maurice Smith, yours truly, National Program Leader at maurice.smith2 at usda.gov no later than March the 15th. If interpretation or translation services are needed, the individual can visit NIFA Language Services or contact Lois Tuttle, Equal Opportunity Specialist at lois.tuttle@usda.gov or 443-386-9488 no later than March the 15th. So what's next? Registration will be open from February 1st to February 28th. Chaperones must attend an online chaperone orientation on Thursday, March. Land-grant universities are responsible for booking their delegations' travel arrangements and scheduling Capitol Hill visits. This slide reviews key dates for planning purposes. The scholarship application opens today and closes January 19th. Registration will open February 1st and closes on February 29th. Keep in mind, registration will close earlier if we reach our maximum capacity. Space is limited to 320 youth participants plus chaperones, and we anticipate selling out. Registration office hours will be held every Tuesday in February at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. These office hours will allow you to get your registration questions answered by our logistics partner. After registration is closed, all registered chaperones will be invited to a mandatory chaperone orientation on March 28th at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. National 4-H Conference will be held April 19th through the 24th.
Hello, it's my honor to welcome you to the National 4-H Conference Assembly. It's long been a tradition for the Secretary of Agriculture to welcome you because at USDA, we recognize the power and importance of this gathering. This conference is an opportunity for you to exchange ideas, provide the youth perspective to government leaders, and return to your communities with a renewed sense of purpose. We created this career fair with one thing in mind, best preparing all of you for future careers in agriculture.
We're just trying to attract people to the wonderful job that is food safety.
We're going to help farmers in urban America start up farms.
We're trying to spark interest in the Natural Resource Conservation Service.
I warmly welcome you to the U.S. Department of Agriculture headquarters.
We need your minds, your backs. We'd love to have you.
We're planting a variety of native oak species today, and we're hoping that our 4-H students are inspired by what they're doing.
You have to dig a hole and put the tree in it and put a flag on them. I think it's awesome. This is some really cool work that I've never been able to do before.
It's almost like building a new generation, and not only 4-Hers, but like through the plants.
USDA is an equal opportunity provider, employer, and lender. This slide contains contact information for individuals with disabilities to request reasonable accommodations. Additionally, language access services will be provided to limited English proficient individuals upon request. Anyone wishing to file a program discrimination complaint can utilize the phone number, fax number, or postal mailing address listed on this slide. Thank you for joining us for the 2024 National 4-H Conference information session. Please email any of the addresses listed on your screen with questions. We look forward to seeing you in April.